Whoa! Welcome to the What's Up Verdict podcast, where we fashion ourselves cinematic judge and jury. My name is JJ Crowder. I'm here with my co-hosts, Mattson Heiner.
Better red than dead.
And Alec Burgess.
Let's get it.
We appreciate you tuning in. Go ahead and hit that follow, subscribe, like, bell notification buttons. Tell a friend about us. Tell a family member about us. Tell a French revolutionist about us, or an innkeeper, or a mayor, or a convict. There's a number of things that you can tell people about us, and we'll take all of them. But yeah, we'll before we jump into the movie, we want to talk about our lovely sponsor, Manscaped. We appreciate their continued sponsorship. And just don't forget that call them whatever you want: knee knockers, golden nuggets, thigh slappers, etc. There's many names. But our friends at Manscaped, they refer to them as the boys. Bless you, Matt. Not every man has children.
I couldn't hit the mute button fast enough.
He got a little never mind, I'll stop. That was gonna be really bad. Not every man has children, but every man is responsible for their two boys below the waist. When your little guys have more hair than they need to, trust Manscaped for all your grooming dreams. Boys need love too, so join the 10 million men worldwide who trust Manscaped, including us, by going to manscaped.com and use code THEVERDICT, one word, for 20% off plus free shipping. You heard it here first. The boys are back in town. Yeah, you can go get that 20% off on anything. There's series of lawnmowers, the 3.0, the 4.0, the 5.0. You can get all that stuff. They're really fun. They got the skin safe technology. I will say that has always been an issue for me when trimming the boys, is catching some skin. It's not fun. I haven't had that problem with the lawnmower. So go pick it up, check it out, get your 20% off plus free shipping with the code THEVERDICT at manscaped.com. That's 20% off plus free shipping with the code THEVERDICT, all one word, at manscaped.com. For the best your boys have ever looked, trust Manscaped. So again, we appreciate them sponsoring this episode. And let's jump in. It's week 2 of Broadway adaptations. This week we're jumping into the thick of it with Les Misérables, and it was released December 25th, 2012. That is the version we're doing here. We know that there's lots of versions, but the 2012 version. It was written by William Nicholson, Elaine Bobile, and Claude Michel Schoenberg. It was directed by Tom Hooper. It stars Hugh Jackman, Russell Crowe, Anne Hathaway, Amanda Seyfried, Sacha Baron Cohen, Helena Bonham Carter, Eddie Rainman, Aaron Tveit, Samantha Barks, and Daniel Huddlestone. It is about 19th century France. Jean Valjean, who for decades has been hunted by the ruthless policeman Javert after breaking parole, agrees to care for a factory worker's daughter. The decision changes their lives forever. That is like the worst synopsis I think we've ever had.
Really bad.
That's really bad and very vague and doesn't even begin to touch on the actual parts of this movie that are important, or this play. But anyway, there it is. Les Mis, because I'm not going to keep saying Les Miserables. I'm just not going to do it. So Les Mis. I love this play too. This one's a hard one for me for the film one, but I think this, if we're talking the musical versions, this is the best version of a movie adaptation, in my opinion. And there's a couple of reasons for that. One problem that I always have with musicals, and I haven't talked about this yet in our month of musicals, but one problem that I always have is the ADR recording of the songs that are then lip synced in, because, and especially in a film like this or like Phantom, and I'm sure we'll talk about that when we get there, but these are serious movies. Like, there's serious topics, and especially this one, it's a very heavy film. Like, there's very little that's happy about most of this story, but the music sometimes is so boisterous and it's over the top, and that's how musicals are designed to be, especially on stage. In this, the way that they did it is they filmed the singing live. They didn't ADR it. So when they were on set, they were singing. There's no dub. It's just them singing. And that's why you get those moments where, especially, and we'll talk more about her too, but Anne Hathaway, when she breaks and she's off key, like, that's why, because the emotion was there. She was actually crying. She was actually acting. And it's, anyway, it's trying to sing and cry. It just doesn't work. But so I appreciate the way that they filmed this, and it was the first time they'd ever done this at this extent and level in a musical. And so I really appreciated that it allowed for the emotion of this film to come through in the story and the characters. Whereas if you go watch, like, there's a lot of versions out, there's a couple versions out there that are older, but the singing, because it's ADR, it's beautiful. The music's wonderful, but it just doesn't always match the emotion of the scene in the moment. And so for a film adaptation, I'm glad that they went with this. It really worked for me in most cases. But I have a lot of opinions about this particular story for many reasons I don't want to get into yet. I want to give you guys a chance to talk about the film and what you thought.
I want to hear why Mattson picked it. Tell us, Mattson. Tell us.
Oh yeah, this is a Mattson pick.
You're muted. Don't
You're
tell
muted.
us what we can't hear.
Sorry, I was muted in case I had another
Sneeze.
phantom sneeze that I couldn't get to the mute button in time.
Amazing.
Well, for our listeners, I have a big family. I have 7 siblings. I'm number 7 of 8. I have 3 older sisters. You can probably see where I'm going with this. That liked to watch Les Mis. I like to watch Sound of the Music, Anne of Green Gables, Pride and Prejudice, like the OG long version. Seen those a lot. So all that to be said, I grew up watching Les Mis like more than a few times, and when my attention span was smaller, I can't say that I was like always glued to the screen and watching. But what I do remember more so than anything that has a lasting impression is the music from this film. I know we're doing Broadway this month, and I am curious. We'll have to do this for the last podcast that we do episode for this month on which movie or musical we felt like has the best music. I think that's an interesting conversation. I'll just come right out and say it. I think Les Mis is definitely. I mean, there's just so many
spoilers.
Good
songs. You're not gonna make us wait till the last day of the month.
No, I'm not. But I'm still deliberating. I haven't decided if it is my number one. But I definitely can say it has a lot of good songs. Where some of the ones we've already reviewed, like there are a couple iconic songs I could say, man, Les Mis just hits it, and they're in those songs have stuck with me through time. So even when I haven't seen this, like watched it in a long time, I've heard the music a lot, and it stirs some of the emotions, takes me back to my childhood, and it's just damn good music. I don't know if this movie is something that I could say I really enjoyed. I think there's some phenomenal acting, like Anne Hathaway's part. But the music, that's why I say like just it's hard to find a musical that's more iconic for me.
Yeah. What about you, Alec?
It's a tricky one. I have a love-hate relationship with this. The hate starts with Victor Hugo. This motherfucker.
Yeah, that guy is an asshole.
And it started with, I read the book first, right? I read Les Mis first. The book that's like fucking.
I was just saying, did you read the unabridged version? Because
read the unabridged version.
Oof.
And I mean, so for those who don't know, Victor Hugo was a legend in his own time, and he let that go straight to his head. In the book, there's like 200 pages where he just goes off on a political essay and does not tell you that's what he's doing. I read this when I was a sophomore in high school.
Oof,
so I'm 15 and I'm like, okay, cool, next chapter. And then all of a sudden, huge shift on what's happening. But he could do it because he's Victor Hugo. He can do whatever the fuck he wants to at this point in time. And so he thought, you know what? I'm going to put a political essay in my book. And so I hate him. I hate him because I read like half of the political essay before I figured out what it was.
Yeah.
But at that point, I got to finish it.
Sure.
So then I'd forgotten what the story was about. So I had to go back and read like the last chapter up to that point to remember where we were in the story. And so any Les Mis adaptation has that in the back of my head where I'm like, oh, this motherfucker.
It sounds like me and Moby Dick with the whaling chapters where you're like, didn't even need that. Didn't even need to know any of it. Yeah.
I do not care about what was happening in the 1830s in France. All the stuff that's happening. But then with this, so I love the stage Les Mis, the live kind of stage performance. So good. And I have I'm in the minority on this. I don't at me. I know that I'm in the minority. I am not a huge fan with the live scene, and I'll tell you why.
Really?
Really, and I think it's because so the people who are really good singers, right? Like Hugh Jackman is a very good singer.
Oh,
He's a very good actor. It feels like when he's singing, he forgets that he's supposed to be acting at times because he goes into like singer mode. Versus you have Helena Bonham Carter, not necessarily a phenomenal singer. So when she's having her role as Madame Thénardier, she's still acting as singing, and so it's a much more consistent performance, in my opinion. Don't at me, I don't care.
Sure.
I recognize my faults,
One
but
of the
for
few
that,
times we will agree. I'm with you.
I love it, or I'm wrong, either one. But it's that. So when Jean Valjean, Hugh Jackman's Jean Valjean is great, and then Hugh Jackman's scene as Jean Valjean is great. But there's such a big difference for me back and forth that even when it's like the confrontation with Russell Crowe as Javert, I'm like, dude, I'm Team Javert all day, because Russell Crowe's in that same boat where not as good of a singer, so he's still acting. And Hugh Jackman is that, almost like he slips into this singing role and forgets that he's supposed to still be acting at points. And so I'm like, I'm not really on your team, dude. You kind of suck. Eddie Redmayne's another good example. Great singer, and he forgets how to act while he's singing in this. And he goes into singing mode. And so it's just for me, it's like, this feels inconsistent at points. And it's because in my mind, you have the great singers, but they're not all great singers. And so you get this contrast back and forth that, like Sacha Baron Cohen. He has, Thénardier. Like, he's my favorite character in this, and that shouldn't happen.
Sure.
So it's a love-hate. So I enjoy it, and like Mattson was saying, like the music's phenomenal. This is another one where I was just belting out everything while I was watching. Though she was kind of like, "Shut up," but it's a contrasting performance that I get pulled out on occasion.
Interesting. Yeah, I'm the complete opposite. Like because I have such a love for the stage version, I always get worried when there's film adaptations of this or TV adaptations. Like I think the one of the London or the English channels did a Lily Collins did a version where she was Fantine, and there's a lot of adaptations, and I'm always leery because I've seen this on the stage, and the stage is amazing. And then when you look at the original cast, like on the stage, like it's just, how do you? And I guess let me back up. The reason that I struggle with this movie, and it's quite interesting, is because of, and I love Russell Crowe, but I hate him in this film. And the problem isn't him. It's the fact that I watched versions of Roger Allam singing Javert, and Javert's supposed to be this just like imposing, menacing, deep baritone voice and look, I love Russell Crowe, and he did his best. Like, you can tell he's acting the shit out of this, but I'm biased because that character is my favorite character in this whole story, because of like the whole, like that just struggle that this dude has from start to finish, and the mirror image of him and of Valjean. And so anyway, like so when they picked Russell Crowe, I was like, oh God, no. Because I'd heard him sing, and like Casey and I have this conversation every time we watch this film. It's like, oh, if they had just picked like a Rufus, she brought up last night, Rufus Sewell, and the guy can sing in the baritone, and he's menacing, and he's terrifying, and he's got that air of, like, I'm better than you, does it very well. So I was like, he would have been great. Like, I think there was just a number of people that would have been better in the role of Javert than Russell Crowe. So he pulls me out. I get what you're saying, and I don't necessarily disagree with you, but I like the difference that it has between the musical, because the musical is always so polished, right? And it's so good, and there's not that break in the emotion for the most part, because the idea is to sing these songs beautifully and perfect. And so I expect that on the stage. So it was a really nice difference in in this movie version. But yeah, like Russell Crowe kills me in this. Like I just can't with Russell Crowe in this film, because it's just, he's a great singer for certain things, but for this, it's just not. Yeah, and again, to have to go up against Alum, like it's just the original cast version of this, like that confrontation is my favorite scene between the two of them, and it just doesn't do it for me in this film. It's like, ugh. And it's not his fault. He tried, but there's just too many amazing cast singers from the stage version, including the original Valjean is the priest.
Colm Wilkinson.
Colm Wilkinson. He's the priest that's in this and just kills it. But yeah, like I love Les Mis. The music's ridiculous. Like, and the characters, my favorite characters aren't the main characters. Like, other than Javert, like Valjean's cool. Fantine's really cool, especially played by Anne Hathaway kills it. But my characters are like, I love Eponine. And I love Eponine because I've also gone through the terror of reading the unabridged version of this book. And my problem is I don't even mind the political essay. My problem was when it took him 4 pages to describe a field of grass. Like, I was like, Jesus, dude, like, I get it. It's fucking green and it's stop it. Like, that's the problem that I have with Victor Hugo is like, he'll take a page to tell you how cool a rock looked. And I'm like, fuck off. Like, anyway, so he annoyed me, but I have this impact. Like Casey and I were talking about when we were watching it last night, that it's interesting to see, like, you see the moment when Eponine, spoiler, dies, right? And you see Gavroche with the little tear down his face. Well, something they never mention in the play, stage version or this one, is that they were siblings. Gavroche and Panine are their brother and sister. And so that moment just feels like, and then this one they show the tear and it's like, okay, well, it's because they're part of the same. No, like, that's his fucking older sister. And like, it's really interesting to get that extra perspective from the book that the play doesn't have time to go into, nor does it really add to it other than the extra level. Because poor Gavroche, like, that dude's just got the worst parents and his only good sister dies. And like, it's, for the love of some dude that doesn't even think of her as anything other than his way to find,
the rich girl.
The rich girl, yeah. So it's, I don't know, it's tough. But I mean, reading the book adds a whole different perspective to this story as well, because there's a lot that they can't put in the play. Because of Victor Hugo, a lot about every single character.
Victor Hugo, I swear.
Guy's got an overwriting problem, especially like you said, by the time he got here, he was already super famous because of the Hunchback and the poetry and being a political figure in France. And so by the time they got there, it's just like, holy shit, dude, that's not political. That's not licensed to just write everything. Like, the guy
but he took it that way.
Oh yeah.
So another thing that I really kind of, I guess I enjoy with this is the overarching kind of revolution thing.
Yeah.
Right. Because this is, I love it when people like bandy about the term revolution, or like use it like, oh, we should revolt. Because that's like, hey, I got a book you should go read about why that's a fucking bad idea.
Yeah.
And I think it does a really good job of kind of painting a pretty accurate picture of what's going to happen. If you just have this spur of the moment idea, guess what? Nobody's going to climb on board with you. And when, push comes to shove, they're going to be like, I don't know that, dude. Like 100%. So this story, I think you did a good job of publicizing, because this is the June Rebellion, right?
Yeah.
For Paris, France. Yes. And so, like, I mean, Paris went through a period of time where, like, every weekend they were having some sort of revolution. And this is one of them. And I think they do a good job of like, hey, revolutions. There's a reason why revolutionaries don't die of old age in their beds. Like,
Yeah.
you got to be committed to your cause,
Yeah.
and to be the only person willing to fight for it. And then, that's just the beginning. But I love in the book, this is my favorite part to read about, is because it's so fascinating to me that he paints such an accurate picture. And then they do a good job in this film of kind of reinforcing that idea, is that this isn't just, the good guys, air quotes, don't exactly always win.
Yeah.
And before you start building the barricade, make sure you got an exit strategy, dude.
Yeah. 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 And there's a reason that this story is called The Miserables. Like, these are not happy people. Like, these are people that are in terrible circumstance, that are making the most, kind of to the point that we talked about in our last recording with Fiddler on the Roof. Like, this is a situation where most people are not in a great place, but they make the most of it and they do their thing and they're trying to better their position. But it's such an interesting, I do find it interesting where people celebrate this film and like, it's so beautiful and it's so amazing. And I'm like, you don't actually know what this is about, do you? Like, this is about people that are in terrible positions, whether they've put themselves there or by bad luck. I mean, you go down to, they emphasize it in the play where Valjean stole a loaf of bread. And it's like, that put him in prison for 5 years, and work camp prison. It's not like go sit in a prison cell. This is like, and I love how they open the film to them tugging this giant ass ship into this dry dock. And you're like, holy shit. Like, that's the kind of work they did. And so but for 5 years for a loaf of bread, like, that's the level of terrible governing that France was in at that time. And then you see all these people that are, I mean, even Marius, to a certain level, like, his family's very wealthy. They're top of the class in Paris, and yet he sees the struggles and the lower class people of France, and he's willing to sacrifice and die until he has to make a choice between love and that, and then it's kind of made for him. And it's one of those things where just the series of unfortunate events, if you will, for all of these characters. But man, it's such a beautiful story if you know what you're actually, it's not just a love story. That's the least thing about this whole thing. It's all redemption arcs. That was Victor Hugo's thing, is redemption arcs and recovering who you were and becoming the best version of yourself at the expense of your happiness sometimes. You know what I mean? So I don't know. I love Les Mis and the story and this musical. I think it was great. I do enjoy what they did with it.
All right. A couple fun facts. Maybe we'll throw in some trivia. This movie won which Academy Award?
Best Supporting Actress?
It did.
Anne Hathaway.
Figured you get this one.
Yeah.
How much weight did she lose to play her part?
I think she lost like 15 pounds, 15 to 20, I think.
25 pounds to display that illness. That's a lot of, she doesn't have a lot of weight to lose anyway, so that's a lot of weight. Yeah. Hugh Jackman, as we know, is famous for this. He also lost weight when he was in like his prisoner status, and then gained weight through filming, as we saw, to kind of depict the kind of nature of being more well off and such. But I know he's known for that. He's legendary kind of for his preparation. How many tons of mud was used on set when making the Frenesha barricade?
Oh, I don't know. Tons of mud? 20 tons.
15.
1,500 tons of mud.
Fuck off. That's a lot of mud. Damn.
That's what it says right here. That almost seems like too much, but
30,000 pounds of mud.
30,000 pounds of mud.
Yeah, they used a lot of mud. And to JJ's point about the live singing, I almost want to go back and see if I can spot the earpiece that they were wearing so they could hear the piano accompaniment of what they were singing to. Obviously, they did a good job because you couldn't see it, but I thought that was extremely interesting. When What year did Les Mis become a musical? When did it start?
85.
Oh wow, JJ, you must have looked this up beforehand.
I know I love this play, dude. It's a problem. Like,
All right, we'll give you a harder one then.
okay.
Um, how many millions of people have seen this performance of Les Mis
Wow. Like the movie or like the stage play?
musical?
The musical.
250 million.
I was about to say, I was going to say like 200 million.
According to this, that's way too generous. I feel like this number is low, though. They say 70 million people in 44 countries and 22 languages around the globe.
Yeah, that feels low, but maybe they're not counting repeat customers. I
Yeah,
don't
they're
know.
probably not doing like maybe just like unique.
Yeah,
and
unique.
they have to,
That
you know,
could be true.
it's also a guesstimate as well.
Sure.
That might be. It also is the musical adaptation of Les Mis, opened in 85 in London, and it's the longest running musical in the West End, and
Mhm.
it's the second longest running musical in the world after the Fantastics.
It's so good.
Last one. Roughly how many pages is the book?
Oh,
800.
no, it's like, I think it's like
Wow,
1,300.
1,500
Yeah.
pages. That's a fat book.
Dude, it's stupid. Look, I love to read. If you're going to read this book, read the abridged version. Because the abridged version, have you read it, Alec? The abridged version? The
Yeah,
abridged version is
much nicer read.
yeah, it's still long and it's still arduous because of the way that Victor Hugo writes, but it's still very good.
It's like the Count of Monte Cristo. Like, just read the abridged version. Like,
Yeah.
save yourself some time.
I do love the Count of Monte Cristo, though. We should do that movie sometime.
That is a good movie. Anyways,
yeah.
there's that's kind of, I think that's what I wanted to. Yeah, I wanted to cover, and they did talk about here as well that Russell Crowe was very uncomfortable about the live singing, but tried his best.
Yeah. I mean, look, I can't. He's my least favorite part of this. That actually, my very least favorite part of this is the new song that they wrote for this movie because it sucks. It doesn't fit, and it pissed me off because when I heard that they did it, and I understand what they wanted to do with it, right? But the problem is, if something on this level works as well as it does, why fuck with it? Like, you don't need that song. It doesn't add any value to this movie or the story. It just puts a great actor who was not cast well in a very odd position to have to sing a new song in a situation where he's as uncomfortable as he is already. And it just, yeah, I actually hate that. Like, I skip that song because I hate it. It doesn't add any value.
Yeah, it's just preposterous to think you're gonna outright a song of a musical that has some of the best like written music in the world.
Yeah.
Probably not.
Get
Probably
the hell
not.
out of here. It ain't happening. But I struggle, and maybe I'm biased. I don't know. You guys keep me honest here if you feel like I'm being ridiculous. But I also struggle.
You're being ridiculous.
That's fair. I also struggle with how Javert goes in this version because, like, one of the best parts. In fact, we saw this in Salt Lake, Casey and I, like 3 years ago. There's a playhouse. They've just updated it, and it's got this circular stage.
Oh yeah, Salt Lake City don't mess around. They do their
No,
musicals.
Utah does some great plays, but they have this new huge playhouse, and it's got this circular stage, so it's 360 view, and it actually opens up. So when Javert kills himself, like, he jumps off this very high bridge. It's not like a couple 100 feet and he smacks into a fucking it. That's not how that works. In the play, he jumps as he's singing that last note, and the note falls with him. So it's like really bitching on, like, in the play, on this normal stage, it was cool. On this stage, it's awesome because it opens up. And so they've got him on this fucking bridge over top. And there's like if you look well enough, you had good enough seats, you can see down into this giant ass hole in the stage. And there's this big pad. This fucker fell off this bridge and landed on this giant air pad at the bottom. And he sang the whole way down. And it's just so epic because that's Javert. Javert doesn't do anything halfway. Like, this guy's committed 100% to his beliefs, his philosophies, his life as a police officer, as an inspector. And, like, so for me, like, they just didn't do Javert, the character, any justice in this. And I'm not blaming Russell Crowe. He tried, he did his best, and he's not without when it's him and Hugh Jackman on screen, like, he does a great job with like the facial expressions and like I believe him as Javert. He just couldn't pull the singing off and like the intensity of that character in the song parts, like the major for him song parts, in my opinion. And so I struggle with his death. I struggle with that new song. Outside of that, I think this movie is a fantastic adaptation to it. But again, I know I'm a little biased. I might be very biased because of my love of Javert. He's like, to me, one of the coolest storylines in this whole thing, because he's just this rigid, understands who he is and what he's doing. And then he's confused by this person that's supposed to be a bad person in his mind, right? And time after time, he's being eluded and he gets away by doing generous, good things, right? And then by saving Javert's life himself, Javert can't reconcile his firm belief in what he stands for and the fact that he couldn't kill this man because he owed him a debt. And so by so doing, this situation throws himself off a bridge because he can't live with this inability to know who he is. What a fucking cool story. And it just, to me, this movie just doesn't do it credit like the play does. And again, that's bias and struggle for me, but I love
the microphone slap makes me think unreasonable, but at the same time, the words coming out of your mouth make me think like you make a good point, right? Yeah. And, I liked Russell Crowe in this. He's the worst Javert out there.
Sure.
But, like you said, it's unfair.
Yeah.
Really anybody in this role is punching outside their weight class.
Yeah.
With what they're going to have to deal with.
You're setting them up for a level of failure regardless.
Who in Hollywood that can act enough to do what they need to could even come remotely close to singing a part? Like, is there anybody?
Benedict Cumberbatch
Sewell would be a good one.
Rufus Sewell, Benedict Cumberbatch were two that Casey and I talked about. I don't know how well Benedict Cumberbatch can sing. Like, I know he can sing a little bit, but he's got the voice for it. He's got that.
I didn't know he could
deep
sing
baritone. He can. I've not seen him in like a serious singing part, so I don't know. He just did a little of goofing around singing on Sherlock Holmes, and so it's, you're like, okay, he sounds good. But Casey blew me away with the Rufus Sewell, and he can fucking sing. He's not. We're still not talking about Alum here, but he can sing. So I think he could have pulled it off. And he's a great villain. Like, when you think about A Knight's Tale, he was the best part. One of the best parts of A Knight's Tale is the villain in that. And so it's like, I could have seen him. But to your point, Alec, I'm speculating here because, again, you're setting people up for failure to Javert. Like, Roger Allam is broken. Like, if you listen to the original cast soundtrack and you listen to the Javert's songs, like, the man just has this silky, beautiful, and yet at the same time, you're terrified. You're like, this fucking guy's gonna kill Valjean. Like, he wants nothing more than to catch Valjean. So it's really, and then he goes beautiful at the end when he's like torn about, how do I live with this, right? Like, I just let him go. How do I live with that choice? And yeah. Anyway,
Rufus is not a bad pick. He would have fit well for the look of the film too.
Yeah.
All right.
This is an off-the-cuff Gerard Butler.
So Casey said Gerard Butler,
yeah,
and Gerard Butler can sing his ass off.
Well, obviously, because we're
doing a movie later about him.
Damn, he can sing. I always forget it's him.
Yeah, and like because like you were saying, Russell Crowe does have that imposing kind of figure in the scene, and Gerard Butler is a very similar, kind of background.
Maybe he declined it or something.
I don't think the only problem with Gerard Butler is he doesn't have that. He's more of a tenor.
Yeah.
And Javert is a baritone, like, singer. Like, he's got that. He can sing the upper registers, right? But
but maybe you got to make that compromise for the film because he would have crushed. He would have crushed it.
Sure.
Because he can. He can just watch the man can sing. I totally forgot. Man, he can sing.
Yeah, he can sing. Casey brought that up too. That she's like, that was her. I don't see why you wouldn't get Gerard Butler. And here's one for you. Gerard Butler as Valjean Hugh Jackman as Javert
Could work.
could work. I don't want to take that away from Jackman because he kills it as Valjean. Like that's not an easy part to sing either or play. So I love what he did with the character. But that was an initial thought that I had is, to be honest, Gerard Butler has more of the voice for the Valjean part. And Hugh Jackman, I think, could go either way because he does have some of those deeper level. But
All right, 2025 remake. Here we come.
Telling you. But I don't know who else. Like that's the problem. It's one of the problems with the Javert.
Well, it's slim pickings at that point. I mean, you're asking someone to do two incredibly difficult things: be the best actor and a phenomenal singer. Like that, obviously, it doesn't really exist.
Yeah, it's tough.
There's a reason Broadway musicals, those people can sing their asses off, but when they act, obviously, it's more of an over-the-top theatrical. But they're not silver screen actors. It's a whole nother level.
It's a very different type of acting for sure. I will say, so I told you one of my favorite characters is Eponine, and the girl that plays her played her in the stage play for years on Broadway, on West End, and they picked her. In my opinion, she has the best voice in the whole show. Like, I love, and this is the other thing that the play doesn't do for Eponine, and you'll know this, Alec, because you've read the book, is Eponine had some mental issues. Like she has the song, and it's not her fault. Like her upbringing was terrible.
No, if you have the Thenardiers of your parents, the fact that you made it through your childhood is a miracle.
Yeah, and you're spoiled for the first 6-7 years of your life, and then that money draw goes away, and now you're like they talked about. She had the body of the look of a 50-year-old with the mentality of a child because she was going through some shit. But one of the things with Eponine with the book is that so she sings the song where she talks about this alternate universe where Marius is in love with her, and she recognizes all of a sudden that that's her. It's not him. He's not involved. And it's one of those things where in the book, it tells that like she lives most of her life in this fantasy world, like where she imagines things that aren't real. And so she has this kind of, so I think it's sad that you don't get to see more of that in the play because they make her just this redemptive character that comes out of nowhere. She takes the letter, keeps the letter, and then saves Marius's life in the end and gives him the letter. But I think she's just she's another really great character in this story. And she has one of the best songs in my opinion, like the one with the rain, and I just love it. So good. But I wanted to call her out because Samantha Barks, I think was her name.
Sounds right.
She's amazing. And she's the best singer in the show, in my opinion. True singer.
The last thing I wanted to say is, because I hadn't seen this until we watch it, Sacha Baron Cohen, I was like, what? I just wasn't. I wasn't ready. Not that he does a good job and like holds his own. I was just like, oh, okay. Just wasn't expecting that at all.
Yeah, I'm the same. So when they announced the cast for it, I was like, wait, Helena Bonham Carter, perfect. Then I was like, Sacha Baron Cohen is either gonna kill it, or it's gonna be terrible. And he was great. Like he did really well. I was surprised.
Master of the House is kind of my favorite.
It's so good.
It's so good. It's just perfect. They're perfectly put into these roles, and then they play off each other so well.
Yeah, it's so good. That's one of my favorite songs too.
That's another one of those like upbeat songs where all they're doing is robbing their patrons blind.
Yeah. It's so good. It's so good. I love it. Yeah, great movie. Should we rate it?
I say so.
Mattson, this is your first time to get to go first because it's your pick, buddy.
Hey, and I'm not going to be giving it a 5 for sure. No, I'm going to give it a 3.5. Look, if we were watching one of the theatrical but more musical versions that I've grown up with, I mean, as far as musicals go, this is a 5 out of this is a 10 out of 5. Like, but in terms of the adaptation to a film, as Alec talked about, the sing-songiness, he said it. I mean, he articulated better than I could have said it.
Can I get that snippet of recording, JJ?
Yeah,
we'll make it a short. We'll make it a short.
Please do. But that was really hard for me I don't know why it was rubbing me the wrong way, but what Alex said about kind of detracting from the acting, it's perfect, spot on. And then, yeah, it just always took me off kilter. But the acting, I mean, Anne Hathaway's performance was incredible. I mean, the movie's visually appealing, but it definitely detracted. Then, yeah, like the Russell Crowe factor, it's not against him, but you could just tell it was hard. And that extra song, as JJ talked about, like, why? Like, if it ain't broke, don't fix it. The reason you're making this into a damn film is because it's freaking incredible. You just heard how many people have watched this around the world, how many languages, how many countries. You think we need another song that's not part of the OG musical? Probably not the right decision. And I really do think that isn't the way to celebrate what this is. Just make an adaptation that's on film. Don't fix it. Just make it.
Agreed. I'm gonna give it a 4.5. And my only real problem with this film is Javert, the extra song. The fact that I just can't get behind Russell Crowe as Javert because the character, it just doesn't fit for me. Again, not Russell Crowe's fault. Kudos for what he does for it because he really does try. And you can tell he's acting his ass off and he's working really hard. And you could tell in interviews where he talked about like what Mattson talked about, where he was nervous, he was worried about it, like he cared about the character. So I appreciate that, which is why I wouldn't take more, because it really takes me out of the film whenever he's singing and on screen for the most part. But it's such a good, I love the new version, the way that they sung. I loved the emotion that you were able to get in the singing, especially from Anne Hathaway and Hugh Jackman. Like they really, well, and I have to say, like, I don't know, Marius, he brought it too. That something about that actor just bothers me though. Like that's a me thing, so I'm not taking it away from the film. He's just not my favorite actor. But yeah, I love the emotion of it. Like it makes me emotional. At the end of the movie, when they're huddled around him, Marius and oh my, Cosette are there. Like, oh yeah, I have yet to watch this movie that I haven't cried at the end. Like it just guts me because it's so beautiful. Like they go through all this terrible shit, and then they finally come together and they're able to be honest with each other. And there's a bright future, hopefully, for Cosette and Marius as they move forward. He's moving back in with Grandpa and getting all his money. So hopefully we'll see that go well. But I don't know. It's so good to see that raw emotion and the way that it plays out. And Anne Hathaway she deserved the Oscar because it was for the fact that she's only in the film for like 7 minutes or 8 minutes or whatever. She's unforgettable in it. So really great. I loved it. I'll watch it anytime. 4.5 for me. Just wish they could have found someone other than Russell Crowe. So Alec, bring us home, buddy.
Yeah, so it's also going to be a 4.5 for me, despite my kind of issue. We'll say we'll go that way with the live singing and it just felt weird to me.
Sure.
I mean, I'm still belting out "How do you do? My name's Gavroche." Like when it comes on, like I mean, as much as it kind of just like I was like, oh, that doesn't flow. It feels weird because you have some people who are still acting while they're singing, and other people who just like turn into singers.
Yeah.
It just messes with my mind a little bit, but. That aside, like I'm still busted out. Like I still enjoy watching this movie, and the story behind it is so great. I love it. So 4.5 for me. And I mean, I've already put the soundtrack back on my phone.
Yeah, me too.
Yes,
me too. No, I did put the original cast soundtrack from London because
I did the live anniversary with Philip Quast and Cole
yeah.
Wilkinson. That's the one I have.
Yeah, Philip Quast is good too. So many good Javerts that were on stage. Yeah, Little People was one of my favorite songs my whole childhood, like so good. And then what's the other one that the one thing I had to note about this movie with Hugh Jackman that I can't, like, I burst out laughing every time. So when he breaks into the courtroom to announce that he's
Who's my name?
and he sings and his lip starts quivering at the bottom. I'm like, I know you're working your ass off to hit that note, but the way his mouth moves just makes me laugh. So and I feel bad because it's terrible, but it's funny as fuck. Just because it's like, it's so weird. Anyway, great movie, great ratings. Alec, tell everybody where they can find us.
Happy to. Nothing quite sets the stage like a French Revolution. or half a French Revolution, or just a few barricades in June in 1832. Les Mis is one of those adaptations that really, regardless of how you digest it, it is still pretty darn good. Even a bad rendition is still pretty good rendition. Shout out to our patrons, So Puckered, Max Bialystock, and Rich for picking this topic and this film. If you want to get involved in the topics, and Mattson put out an urgent plea on last episode for somebody else to get involved in the topic picking, Patreon is the best place to do that. And with that, I will kick it back to the Colossus of Clout, the King of Crash, a JJ.
Yeah, thanks, Alec. It's been a while since I've been to this. That's not fair. Last month I was excited about the lineup of movies, but I got my soul crushed because I picked the wrong ones. This time I didn't have anything to do with these 4 movies, so I'm excited and I'm enjoying it. So yeah, thanks for tuning in. As always, we appreciate it, and we'll catch you on the next one.
Bye. Hasta la vista, baby.
Cinemagico.
Whoa!